We're live, boys. Hokie Hangover's back. We said earlier this was going to be a defensive preview episode, and it still will be, but I think there's some other bigger stuff that we're going to talk about tonight. As you might imagine, really quick before we do check in with you guys, Counts Family Pharmacy, if you're in Blacksburg, that's the place to go to get all of your pharmaceutical/pharmacy needs and home field apparel. 50% off of your first order using the code BeamerBall. Mike, good evening, sir. Nathaniel Lowe has already broken my heart tonight, so I hope we're going to make it better.
Welcome to Boston. We
Piss
can't
off.
be. I did mention, piss off. I did mention this to you before we hit record. If the Red Sox want to purport themselves as a serious baseball team in mid-August, a team that's going to make the playoffs, maybe, get out of the ALDS, you can't be losing 2 out of 3 to the Orioles in the third week of August. Can't be happening. So
fair enough.
Mike, to that I said that's just baseball. I don't know if you've watched the New York Mets play this season.
I have. I've familiarized myself.
But they've been the best team
weeks.
in baseball. They've been the worst team in baseball, depending on what month and a half period you take. But a 8-1 win over Dave Scarangella's Washington Nationals, I'll take it.
The only non-Oriole baseball headline I saw today was, I think it's from Fangraphs, and it said, Juan Soto's defense is declining and rapidly. And I was like, oh, that's great. Year one, and Soto's already an awful defender.
I don't think he was that good to begin with, to be fair.
No, he wasn't.
You could ask the Yankees fans, the Padres fans, or, Nationals fans in 2023.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, if you talk to buddy Stephen Newman, he said there was a point in time in D.C. where Soto's defense was serviceable, but that seems to have changed. All right. Earlier this week, Whit Babcock gave a much ballyhooed, much covered presentation to Virginia Tech's Board of Visitors.
Shout out Doug Bubman.
Yes, Doug. Again, if you haven't seen that presentation, Doug's got the whole thing on his X. This was at the River Course in Radford, which, again, if you're in the area and you haven't played, go play. This was a very detailed presentation. It was also extremely frustrating to see at this point in time. We talked about this before it was made because we had all of the slides. This was a little too late. And I think we were all kind of in agreement on that while the issues presented are important and some of the solutions presented seem to be valid on the surface, a lot of these problems could have been foreseen 5 years ago or even 3 years ago. And it is hard to see Virginia Tech finally coming to terms with some of these things now as opposed to back then. So there's a few quotes that I think I really want us to hit on tonight that certainly stood out to me. And I think our reactions may be on the negative side. So I want to preface this conversation by saying that there's plenty of stuff in here that Whit said that I agree with, and I think it's good that he brought it up. But for the purpose of the discussion and for the purpose of me being honest about my feelings about the direction of this program, these are the things that I think we need to discuss. And they kind of cover different issues within this department. So I wanted to pull up the first one. This quote caught my eye here. So this post is from Andy Bitter from Tech Sideline. He says, Babcock is addressing the Hokies athletics budget specifically, says it'll be up to $144 million next year, but that is still on the low end of the Power Four in the ACC. And then the quote he puts at the end of this is, our resources don't match our expectations. I think there's a disconnect between what Whit believes the expectations are of his program and what we think the expectations are of this program. We're not asking Virginia Tech to be a national title contender. We're not asking Virginia Tech to consistently be in the top 10 nationally like a Clemson or at one point a Florida State. We're asking them to not suck Okay. And as I wrote about earlier this summer, and as I think we've covered quite deeply on this show, Virginia Tech has the resources to not suck. So, to you guys, one, do you think I'm on the spot here, or am I kind of off base? And also, what is causing this disconnect between the administration and the fans, who I think have been quite vocal about what they want to see?
So, Ricky, I think there's I hate to say it, a bunch to unpack here. But I'll start with your overarching point, right? Which I'm going to assume is that you're saying, well, here we are as Virginia Tech, right? We've been in this situation in the ACC where generally we've been within spitting distance of competitiveness, and we have fallen far short from that. So to see the athletic director come begging for change right before the season, where, let's be honest, if it doesn't go well, a lot of people are predicting him to be fired and saying the resources just aren't there. Yeah, that does. It seems a little suspicious, but at the same time, you can look and say the nature of college football is changing. The landscape of college football is changing. You look at the Big Ten, you look at the SEC, you look at the revenue sharing programs. It's a huge disaster for Virginia Tech in any way you slice it up. So I think what Whit Babcock is saying is, hey, if you don't want to be totally screwed going forward, you should have changed things 2 years ago, but you really should change them now. But at the same time, it's like, well, why didn't you tell them to change things 2 years ago? And are you trying to push blame from it's not money's fault. It's not the donor's fault. In fact, it's to the donor's credit that we were able to keep last year Bashal Tootin, Jalen Lane, and all these guys, and you won 6 games. So it feels like a good message combined with a push of blame happening at the same time. So that message might be correct, but it's taken the wrong way just because of that. And that's how I see it.
Yeah, it's a good point. Couple different things here. Number one, Whit going to the Board of Visitors asking for more money is something that should have been done a while ago. There is more of a sense of urgency now because realignment is on the horizon again. That 2029, 2030 season is not very far away. Whit knows it, and there's a sense of urgency because of it. Their TV deals are coming up. The ACC in particular could see some of its top brands go to other conferences. There could be, mergers at play, right? The ACC and the Big 12. I know it's been talked about, hey, maybe they combine to have kind of their own conference, that tries to rival the ACC and the Big 10. Could that be a thing? There's a lot that's happening in the next 5 years in college sports that is impacting this. There's also the revenue sharing piece, which is new. There's, the apparel deal piece of it, which we just saw with Tennessee, right? Tennessee switches apparel brands, and now we have apparel brands paying players NIL above the cap. That's not going to count against the revenue sharing, which it's like an arsonist putting out its fire with college football with the way they do these things. You create a rule, then you create another one that goes around the rule you just created to, put out a fire that you've been complaining about for years. It's like, this is insane. But there are a lot of other things at work here that I think is driving the sense of urgency with Whit Babcock. First and foremost, it's the fact that he's on the hot seat. That's the biggest thing driving this. Whit's on the hot seat. he's feeling the heat. He's feeling the pressure. That is what's driving this more than anything else, in my opinion. We can talk about the revenue sharing. We can talk about the realignment. We can talk about the fact that Virginia Tech is lagging behind from a football budget standpoint. He's on the hot seat. He feels the heat, right? And I think that kind of we talk about deadline spurring action. Well, okay, 2029, 2030, that's like a deadline spurring action. Whit feeling the heat is another piece of this here, right? It's that he's feeling the pressure and he wants to find a way to try to get Virginia Tech football out of this rut that it's in. By the way, he's right. Like the funding thing has to come, the funding for the football program has to come from the university. It has to. There are, for every Texas and Georgia and Notre Dame and LSU and Texas A&M, there are 35 to 40 other schools for every one that you name that's a giant brand that is dealing with these same kinds of issues from a football funding standpoint. Virginia Tech, like I would say 100 other schools in the FBS, right, is in a situation where they don't have a ton of rich donors to reach out to, right? The donor base for Virginia Tech, I think the base of donors is pretty big. The number of extremely wealthy donors that can kind of self-fund the football program is very small, right? It's Mehul. Like, who else is it? It's very shout out. It's very small, right? That is the issue. The funding has to come from the university. It has to. The fact that the Board of Visitors, I saw several quotes from different people on the board pretending like this was new information. Hello, welcome to college athletics in 2025. Where the fuck have you been? Like, where have these people been? It drives me crazy, right? You could tell like half of the Board of Visitors don't pay any attention to athletics. They're like, oh wow, we need more money in sports, and we're paying players now. It's like they've had their head in the sand for a large period of time, a large chunk of time. This needed to be done. Whit is right. The money needs to come from the board. David Teal said that the money that Whit is asking for only makes up 2% of the total operating budget for the university in the academic year. Virginia Tech's got like a $4.5 billion operating budget. This would make up 2% of it. The amount of money that Whit is asking for, that's not unreasonable. Like, it's not unreasonable to ask for that, especially if you want to have a football program that Whit wants to see at the top of the ACC. I think Whit having that expectation is fair, right? I think it's fair if you're getting the funding and the right leadership. There's two components here. Having the funding to compete at that level, an elite level at the ACC, like a Clemson, who's competing at a national scale more often than not, right? There's the expectation for that comes with the funding piece, and having the right leadership, right? From Sands to Whit to Pry on down. It's having that alignment. And I think what we've struggled with at Virginia Tech is having the foresight. This is something you can't really change now. Having the foresight when things were going really, really good with Virginia Tech's football program, having the foresight to not be complacent. And this goes back to the Beamer years. I don't want to go on that rant again because I'll be talking for 15 more minutes. But when the going was really, really good at Virginia Tech, instead of pushing the ball forward from a funding standpoint in the athletic department and reaching out to the donor base more than they should, everybody was content with Virginia Tech just competing for ACC titles. Everybody was content with it until Clemson came around with their IPTE donor program, I pay 10 a year, and it pushed Clemson to the forefront of the ACC. And all of a sudden, Clemson became the new Virginia Tech, only on steroids, because they had the funding to compete at a level commensurate with competing for national championships. Virginia Tech, outside of 1 year in the last 2.5 decades, maybe 2, right? If we talk about some of the close calls they've had after 99, has not been at that level. They've been at a level 9 or 10 wins a year when things were going really, really well and being a top 15 to 20 program in the country. This was not a consistent top. I don't care what anybody says. This was not a consistent top 5 program in the country. The Beamer years were really good, but it wasn't elite. They could have been elite if they pushed the ball forward. The school got complacent, and now Virginia Tech's behind. And it's kind of that, no, this is what you have to deal with. Whit was right about a lot of stuff yesterday, but I'm in total agreement. Some of this should have come years ago. I think the revenue sharing, NIL, all this stuff, the pressure that he's under, it's pushing everything to the forefront now. All the chips are going to the center of the table with a week and a half until the opener. I mean, I don't know if this is the right timing. This should have been done years ago, but I understand it. I get it.
All right. So this is somewhat reminiscent, right? And reminiscent of one of the most popular podcasts we've ever had, which was, if you go back, what was it now? 2 years? Andrea Adelson with the hit piece on Virginia Tech. Basically disparaging the program, disparaging Mr. John Boleyn. You do that with the leaks, right? Because there were leaks. If you're Brent Pry and you're the crew, when you want expectations to be, Ricky, would you want them to be higher or be lower after you leak all that information to the press?
You would want them to be lower.
Yes, that would be what you're going for, right? It's essentially saying it's not my fault. It's not my fault. There are institutional problems here. And maybe that's fair. Maybe that's fair, right? But let's look at this, right? Whit Babcock was the athletic director before unfettered capitalism took over college athletics. And that's true. And that's a great way to describe it. And Whit Babcock came from an era when college athletics was actually college athletics. But at the same time, there was a transition. And some schools did a very good job in that transition. Clemson was mentioned before, even though they resisted it as hard as possible, not at the athletic director level, but at the head coach level, at least within college football. And I know that some of these people on the board of visitors were too busy listening to Native American poetry readings or this, that, or the other to realize that the college football program that made the university popular to begin with, and a good friend of mine, I won't mention his name, actually I will, Brady Hess, wrote a great paper about the impact that Michael Vick had on the enrollment of the university, the applications, the overall academic stature, everything that happened within the Beamer era on Virginia Tech. And I think that we could probably all look at ourselves in the mirror and look at each other and say, because we're all of roughly the same age in our late 20s, early 30s, in the wake of that, and say that's totally a huge thing that put Virginia Tech on our radar. And Whit makes a good point about that throughout the speech, right? Like, what is the value marketing-wise of athletics, right? You can do all this stuff. You can try to make your point in advertisements and this, that, or the other. But a competitive college football team puts you on TV in front of millions of people every week. It puts you in front of the national audience. And Virginia Tech is getting to the point where they are not quite there. And Enter Sandman can only take you so far. And I think that maybe the Board of Visitors has been just totally satisfied with, oh, well, we have a great entrance and the stadium is selling out and what have you. And maybe they think that's baked into the cake. And maybe they think that will last forever. But we are getting to the precipice of it being ridiculous that the very positive football culture at Virginia Tech even exists at all anymore. Because I was having a conversation with, as a lot of our listeners know, my own father. And Duke football has had lower lows over the course of the last 10 years, higher highs. And still, nobody shows up to those games. So what's the purpose of the culture here? Because that culture will die with poor performance, And as people of our age who grew up like this and thinking that Virginia Tech was some sort of force to be reckoned with, which they were, start having kids, and as Mike McDaniel can attest to, right? Like, once life gets in the way, it's hard to spend $100, $200 to go to a Virginia Tech game. And it's way more than that, right? Because you got to get a hotel, you got to drive down to Blacksburg. It's a whole ordeal. So I take 2 points away from this, right? Number one is the Board of Visitors is clueless. And I think it's a good thing that Whit Babcock informed the Board of Visitors that they're clueless. But at the same time, I asked the question, wait, who was supposed to tell them 2 or 3 years ago? Who was in charge? And Ricky LeBlue could answer that question.
Same guy who's in charge now. Also, did I just get? Oh man, sorry, Mike. Sorry about your luck.
Baltimore Orioles 4, Boston Red Sox 3. That's a final, ladies and gentlemen, in 11 innings. The Red Sox left the bases loaded. I actually don't know who walked it off. I just got the score alert, but I do want to say that the Red Sox left the bases loaded in the final 3 innings of this baseball game. So
I will say you're complaining, but your team was like totally out of it. The same week that the Mets had the best record in baseball, the Red Sox were left for dead. We'll say that.
This team was dead on like the 4th of July. So I mean, it's been a great run. Anyway,
this came from Thomas Anderson earlier. This isn't a baseball podcast. Yes, Thomas, we're aware. So let's get back to this Board of Visitors presentation.
Also, Thomas, X is the everything app.
Yeah, absolutely. Before I get into the Board of Visitors aspect of this, because there is a huge point I want to make about that, and Andrew, you kind of touched on it already. Whit Babcock said here, and again, this is a quote from Andy Bitter at Tech Sideline, Cal and Stanford did not go all in, and they got left behind. Okay, so the school I want to focus on here is Cal, all right, who, if you may remember, Mike McDaniel thought had a shot to make it to Charlotte last year. Sorry, I had to throw that dig in there.
It was after a hot start in September.
All right, so I'm going to read off the last 3 seasons for the Cal Bears, and then I'm going to read off the last 3 seasons for Virginia Tech. And I want you to tell me what you think about the comparison.
I don't want to do this because I know what's coming. Sorry.
So Cal last 3 seasons 4-8, 6-7, 6-7. Virginia Tech last 3 seasons 3-8, 7-6, 6-7. Those numbers sound awfully similar to you.
Yeah, and they both have a lame duck head coach as well.
So maybe the point should have been, Whit, that under your leadership, the program is already left behind. Because if your point is going to be that Cal is left behind, which it's certainly could be the case, and they're drowning in debt over there apparently, their results are not all that dissimilar than your results of late. And now you're in the same conference. So it's going to be a lot easier to make these comparisons. I'm not sure that Whit has a good understanding of where the program is right now. And after I let you guys chime in on this, I'm going to read off the next quote that I wanted to discuss. I'm not sure that the Board of Visitors or the university has an idea of where this program is at right now.
They have no clue. Before you go, I can promise you.
Yeah.
Why is Cal in the ACC? I ask you that question. Why is Cal in the ACC? Who would have the power to make the decision? The university presidents. Where they go to college?
Right.
I'll leave it at that. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. They just bailed Cal and Stanford out, which, okay. SMU just SMU was like a right place, right time situation. They're in an entirely different bucket. They could
Well,
done
that,
whatever they
yeah,
wanted
like
to.
Andrew's saying, SMU essentially bought their way into the conference for a
Yeah.
little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, they don't need the conference's money.
And we'll take the money, and do you know what that did for them? Tremendous things.
Yeah.
As Whit presented in the presentation, 150% increase in applications. It turns out that being good at football actually will put your school on the map.
Virginia Tech should know all about that.
Yes, which is
Vic.
crazy.
They should know all about this. This shouldn't be news to the Board of Visitors. Virginia Tech's applications, we got to go back and look at it. But Virginia Tech's applications skyrocketed after 99 with Michael Vick. The same thing happened. It became infinitely more difficult to get into school at Virginia Tech after Michael Vick led them to a national championship appearance. It became infinitely more difficult to get into school there from an academic standpoint because they had so many applications. And it's continued kind of that ascent because the program was relevant for a 15-year period there. We're in this spot now where Virginia Tech is a 6-6 program. That's what they are. Like, look up College Football Reference. Virginia Tech hasn't had a.
We have been mid for as long as we were good. Almost.
Yeah.
Virginia Tech's last 10-win season was Fuente's first in 2016. Their last 9-win season was Fuente's second year in 2017. They haven't had an 8-win season since 2019. They haven't won more than 6 regular season games since 2019. Regular season, I know they've finished 7-6, and they've played in bowl games and that sort of thing. But I mean, this has been a very mediocre program for a very long time, and I think for fans, the expectations and Virginia Tech's current financial status doesn't mean that Virginia Tech should be finishing 6-6 every year or 7-5. Virginia Tech's got enough money right now to compete in the upper echelon of the ACC in terms of like being a top 4 team in the conference. What, you can't be as good as Pittsburgh or Duke or I mean, what are we doing here? You absolutely can. Your money isn't that bad, right? Where you can't be competing with schools like that on the gridiron, right, on the football field. If you want to compete with Clemson, like actually compete with Clemson and be on the same field with a team that can compete for a national title, a la the 2016 season when Virginia Tech lost to Clemson in a very tightly contested ACC title game that actually led to Clemson going on and winning the national championship. If you want to be that kind of program for a sustained period of time and not just one season, you got to get your money right, man. And it has to come from the university. It's not coming from donors. You can reach out. You can say, oh, what the hell's the Hokie? I saw this too. Oh, what the hell's the Hokie Club been doing? And the Hokie Club can only do so much, guys. I have my complaints about the Hokie Club and what they should and shouldn't be doing, and if they should be upping their advertising, there should be more of a push. I get the complaints, but that's only going to do so much. It really is. It's only going to do so much. There aren't enough big money donors contributing to the football program, and there aren't enough of them that flat out exist for it to matter, right? If you want to compete with the Alabamas, the LSUs, the Texases, the A&Ms, those schools that have a ton of money, Nick Boardman, Clemson spends $25 million more than Virginia Tech on football alone every year. Clemson made a decision a long time ago, right? Right around the time that I started going to school at Virginia Tech. Clemson made a decision, and I mentioned this earlier in the podcast, the I Pay 10 a year program. They made a decision that they were going to go all in on football. That was going to be their thing. It's paid off. It's paid off.
Yep, sure
they took a chance on Dabo. Of course, they struck gold with him, right? He's remains one of 2 active head coaches that have won more than 1 national title with Kirby Smart. It's this is they struck gold there, but they also put all their eggs in the football basket in a way that Virginia Tech didn't when Virginia Tech was really good. That's my whole point. That is literally my entire point. And now
that should be Whit's point, though, Mike.
Yep.
Look how it worked out for them.
Yep.
And he presented that in the meeting.
Right. Which I agree with.
The increase in
agree with it.
applications. Clemson is a great school. And I don't want to disparage it, but it is far more highly sought after today than it was in 2007. And they still had a good football program back then.
Mm-hmm.
They sustained that.
Yep.
And they increased that. And, the way that we look at Clemson now, which is even in the wake of a little bit of a decline, is still far higher than we look at a lot of other universities, right? Virginia Tech had the opportunity to capitalize on a gold rush. Imagine being in the gold rush. Imagine if you were one of the San Francisco 49ers, not one of the players on the NFL team, but one of those guys who went out to California and struck gold. And after a few pieces of gold, you quit and said, all right, I found gold. I'm leaving. That is effectively what we did. Because Clemson got a little bit of gold and they said, wow, this gold is really great. They kept going. And then they asked everyone around them for a drill so they could keep going deeper. And it's crazy that we got to this point that Virginia Tech is effectively irrelevant. I hate to say that, but it's true. Because if you are 18, 19 years old, as Mike McDaniel leaves the podcast, he got upset.
Guy has no idea what he's doing.
He got upset, but it's true.
Mike's computer crashed like 2 weeks ago, and the way things are going right now, you would think
it's about to crash again. My browser has now crashed twice in this podcast, so I just closed literally every other application on my computer.
Yeah. I mean, again, you have teams like Rutgers in the Big Ten. You have teams like Maryland in the Big Ten. And part of the larger speech that Whit Babcock gave is that if we want to be in the Big Ten, when they renegotiate their deal in 3 years, we need to start making some moves to prove that we're worth money.
Yeah.
He's right. He's right. He's absolutely right. We need to prove that we're worth money.
Yeah.
We blew it. And again, it's hard. You blame Jim Weaver, rest his soul. But who took over after that?
Yeah. I mean, Whit's got to be one of the longest tenured athletic directors in the country at this point. I think Mike might have a better idea of where he ranks in that group, but
he is the I don't know who the first is. I have to go look this up.
But it's got to be like top 5, top 10.
David Cunningham actually mentioned this to me when I had him on for my my ACC podcast. We did the Virginia Tech preview. He mentioned that Whit and Tim Sands are the longest tenured, second longest tenured athletic department head and president duo in the Power Four. So yeah. I'm not sure who that's second to, but yeah, the point being, they've been around a while. 2
more quotes, and we've touched on kind of the sentiment of this already, but David Teal had a post here, said that board member, I think it's Gene, I'm going to go with Gene Stosser, says that given the funding gaps, she's surprised the Hokies are as competitive as they are, and applauds Babcock for asking for help from the campus.
Competitive to make a bowl game, or
what the hell are you watching? Are you watching?
No.
Are you paying attention in any way whatsoever? How? And I like I put on X. I really hope that her point of view is not representative of the board more broadly. But if it is, not only do we have an athletic director who's struggling to keep this ship afloat and is making his own poor decisions, we have a university president that has not effectively communicated the status of his athletic program to the board. And we have a board that is asleep at the wheel when it comes to athletics. No wonder Virginia Tech is struggling to keep pace with some of their peers.
When is the last time that Virginia Tech had 9 or 10 win expectations? Probably 2019. I don't think it was last year. Like the three of us had a conversation. Like we expect the program to be better. Could they win like 8 or 9?
No,
Maybe?
we
think
definitely
8 was
expected them
kind
to
of
be better.
I think 8 was kind of
I thought 9 wins was very possible.
8
Fair.
or 9, probably not 10, but 8 or
Yeah.
9.
Yeah. So okay. So maybe last year, right? But also like it had been a while before that.
But how can you even if you just went on Wikipedia, like how can you look at some of the basic stuff and think, oh wow, Virginia Tech's been pretty competitive?
You can't. That's the problem. you literally can't. I'm looking at the longest tenured. Granted, this is Chat GPT, so it could always be wrong. But you have Mitch Barnhart at Kentucky. He has sat in his seat for 23 years.
Oh yeah, that's who it is. It's Barnhart and Stoops. It's Barnhart and Stoops. That's number 1, and then
I thought we were
Witt.
talking president, athletic director, not.
I'm talking purely athletic director. Presidents retire all the time. That's an end of career job.
The answer,
Most don't
the
last
answer is
long.
Kentucky. Ricky, you're right, but you're right. Sorry about that. Take the Stoops part out of it, but the answer is Kentucky.
Okay.
I remember now. So shout out David Cunningham. Anyway.
But this is clearly an issue. If Whit is, at least what it seems to be, going to these, his bosses a little too late to try and get Virginia Tech caught up from the deficit that they're in right now. And then the board seems like they're just hearing this information for the first time, and they just kind of assumed that, oh, things are fine over there.
That's my biggest, my biggest criticism of Whit's presentation is that it was too late for several of the items that he talked about. Obviously, like the revenue sharing piece, the NIL piece in regard to how NIL sits with revenue sharing with the House case, that's all new, right? So like that stuff, okay, fine. The other stuff, going to the university for funding, could have been done years ago. That's my biggest issue with what Whit said. I agreed with almost everything Whit said yesterday from a we need more money standpoint, and it has to come from the university. He is right. Like, people are really frustrated with Whit Babcock for a lot of reasons, and a lot of it is very justifiable, in terms of the top 2 sports not performing as well as they need to, right? Men's basketball and football, obviously, and who he's hired, and not getting appropriate funding to the men's basketball program, and now kind of fixing that, patching that up late, and kind of putting Mike Young in a really bad spot last year. I agree with a lot of the criticisms about Whit, but he is right about this. Like, the stuff he's saying, what he presented to the board, where the money needs to come from, he is right. Regardless of what you think of him, he's right. My biggest criticism is that he's late on a lot of the stuff he was complaining about. He did mention, like, he's been crying wolf about this for a while. My thing is that he hasn't done anything like this with the Board of Visitors. He didn't come out to the Board of Visitors. And you know what? A lot of this has to do with COVID. We haven't even talked about that. Everybody, there are schools all across the country slashing sports and cutting sports, cutting their athletic departments, and cutting jobs. And I do understand optically what this would have looked like if he gave this presentation in like 2022 when they were still feeling the after effects of COVID. What I don't understand is why didn't this presentation come when schools started leaving for other conferences like a year and a half ago? That's what I don't understand.
2022 seems generous, Mike. That's
why didn't these conversations start to happen within the last 18 to 24 months? That's what I don't understand. Why didn't we have a presentation with the board then? That's the part that's making me
because
crazy.
he thought he had a good football team and it was all going to be better.
Yeah.
I mean, hell, Mike, he could have made.
The funding was still an issue, though. That's my
Well,
thing.
I was going to say he could have made this pitch when Justin Fuente was flirting with Baylor.
That's when it
because
should have been. That's when
Justin's
it should have been made.
Well, that
Yeah.
was, to be fair, that was a different world. He made a different pitch at that time, and allegedly he was successful.
Yeah, but in terms of if you're trying to take it to the next level, like Mike was talking about earlier, you're trying to actually advance the ball instead of catching up and try and have some foresight. A lot of these things could have been discussed prior to the lockdowns, prior to the pandemic, and
Beamer
perhaps
years.
Virginia Tech wouldn't have a deficit in terms of resources that they do with some of their peers and essentially most of the elite of the sport. So the timing is certainly the issue. I think the bigger issue, to be quite honest, is the Board of Visitors just kind of lack of apparent knowledge of where this program is. The fact that they are just now hearing about some of these things for the first time, I think is very discouraging. I don't know if it's because they haven't been receptive. I don't know if it's because Whit hasn't tried and made an effort. I don't know if it's because Tim Sands isn't effectively communicating where his athletic program is. What I do know is that the people in power need to be more aware of what's going on. They need to be a little bit more proactive in trying to solve some of these issues rather than continuing to be reactionary in anything that this department does.
Sands is the head of the Division I board of directors. Like, he better be aware, man. And I totally agree with you, Ricky. Like, I totally agree. He better be aware, though.
It's a classic Hokie Hangover argument. We all agree, and we're just drawing
Mad
straws.
about it.
Mad. We're just
Rick, can you put the 1054 Nick Corbin comment on the screen, please? He was. He
Yeah.
absolutely was. And
Nick
for those
Corbin
of you who are
says-
listening on audio, the comment says,
Yeah.
no fan of Foo, but he was begging for more money. And that was before all of this. Look, I mean, again, I'm not here to defend Justin Fuente because a lot of his issues came from himself and his inability to find the right staff and the right people to recruit the state of Virginia. But they were playing catch up in a different game, a game that wasn't so institutional. And now Virginia Tech finds themselves in a place where the revenue from the television isn't coming. You have to actually pay the players based on that, percentage-wise. And, you know, they're just totally screwed. I mean, one of the most important things in my mind that Whit said is, remember that schedule for next year that we have that everyone's complaining about?
Yeah.
Ricky, who made that schedule?
Same guy who's complaining about it.
The same guy who's complaining about it. Well, I mean, granted, he
Seems
made
to be
it
a trend.
He made it in a period of
we're all
time.
trying to figure out who did this.
I think it was Mike.
Oh man.
But yeah, like, oh, so we're going to need to cancel these games. Well, keep the JMU game, or maybe don't, depending on how the season goes.
I was gonna say I wouldn't.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure Tech wants to see them on the field.
That might be your next head coach on the other sideline.
Ooh,
For real,
hello. No, I think the next head coach got some merch boxes today.
Okay.
Moving on.
Yeah,
God
with $144
God
million.
willing.
Yeah.
Moving
I
on.
was gonna say, what's going
But
to
yeah,
pay him?
but either way, to the point though, is that, like, you know, yes, the game has changed. There was a person in charge. If you put me as the athletic director, what would you want me to do? You would not only want me to understand how the game is being played right now, you would want me to understand how the landscape of the environment of the world that I work in is heading. Right? Like, because that's what you trust that person to do. They are the head honcho. These people don't make that many immediate decisions. Like, Whit Babcock is not deciding what bobblehead doll gets passed out at the baseball game. That's someone else's job. You're supposed to make big executive decisions. And it seems like he missed the ball. And it's very unfortunate. And I'm very happy for him, and he said it very directly during his speech. I don't expect to keep this job for that long, whether it be by my own fruition
final
or
quote we need to talk
yours.
about.
and that's a true statement, and it gives me respect for him in saying that, like, you guys really need to figure it the fuck out. Believe that, Mike.
Absolutely not. I had an F-bomb at like the 7-minute mark tonight. We're far past that.
But yeah, it's like, if Virginia Tech wants to be a serious athletic program, changes will have to be made. That's what it comes down to. We are 45 minutes deep on our first topic.
Yeah, I was going to say we got to wrap this up because I didn't expect us to take this long to talk about Whit. But telling your bosses that I don't know how much longer I want to do this, and I'm not sure how much longer you want me to do this.
That's one
is
strategy.
It's
Yeah.
certainly ballsy. But it is a concern that, you know, if you're on the board of visitors and you hear him say that, does it inspire confidence that this guy is committed to seeing this through? Because I don't know that I would think that it does. I would hear that and say, okay, well, he's identified a problem, but it sounds like he doesn't want to be around to solve it. And that's really, really discouraging. And I think it may potentially make the chances of a change later this year more likely than they otherwise would have been.
I mean, I laughed at the quote, but like a lot of people felt a lot more strongly about it than I did. I don't know. He's nearing retirement. I think it was more of like, this is one of those deals where sometimes you put Whit, not sometimes, a lot of times where he has to speak in high leverage situations in front of a microphone and reporters. He says stuff that
he's put his foot in his mouth a few times.
He probably wishes he had back. Yeah, he sticks his foot in his mouth is a better way to put it. This is kind of another one of those times. I think what he meant to say was kind of regardless of who you guys have in charge, you better get it together, which is what Andrew was kind of saying there, which he's right. Regardless of who's leading the charge, somebody's going to have to figure this out. We may as well figure this out sooner rather than later, whether it's me or with somebody else. Not as much as like people are taking it like, oh, well, he didn't really care. He doesn't. I mean, he obviously cares. He wouldn't have done this presentation if he didn't care. Like, of course he cares. No, I don't agree with that. People are like, oh, he didn't really care about this. He does care, right? Now, we can argue about if it was late or on time or, you know, when he should have done it. We can argue all those points. He cares, right? The pressure's on him and he wants to succeed. He definitely cares. So I don't agree with that sentiment I was seeing on social media a little bit. But I saw it as more of like a throwaway quote. Probably wishes he had that one back. But I think it was more of like, we got to figure this out collectively. Because if it's not going to be me who's going to be leading the charge, it's going to be somebody else who's going to be asking the same question. If they see Virginia Tech's football program the way that we all see it, one that should be competing consistently in the top 20 in the country like it used to be. You know, if you want to take it to another level, then the donors need to get involved too. It needs to be like a full cash cow, which it obviously is not. So let's not worry about that right now. Let's compete for ACC titles and get back to being a top 20 program. Let's walk before we run a little bit. But you are playing behind the 8 ball too. So there has to be a sense of urgency.
Yeah, Mike, it's not just the donors. He wants the state to get involved. He wants the university to get involved.
Has to.
And that's what it requires at this point, huh? Right? Like,
has to.
In all seriousness. And yeah, it might be too little too late. But I think the entire point that I've been trying to make, and possibly not so effectively, but it is what it is that him complaining right now today does not excuse him from screwing a bunch of stuff up over the course of the last 4 or 5 years. We'll give it, and that's generous. 4 or 5 years is generous. it doesn't mean everything he isn't saying or everything he's saying isn't true. Correct?
Correct. My entire point tonight
Yeah,
is he's right about a lot of stuff.
Because
but
the way that the landscape is changing, it's all going to get worse. And you could say he put us in this position, and we could have a different argument as to whether that's fair. But at the end of the day, like, yeah, he might not be the athletic director tomorrow, but someone else is going to take the mantle. And the reality is that the people who are in charge of not just the Virginia Tech athletic department, but Virginia Tech at large, and that goes beyond the guy who holds the title of president, who might be running around like a chicken with his head cut off when it comes to this type of stuff, are all going to have to wake up and smell the coffee and realize, what the hell is going on? And do I have a ton of faith that's going to happen? I don't necessarily think so. You guys could tell me I'm wrong. I don't think you will.
Well, I was going to say that it kind of, just to sum up my thoughts on all of this, it's better that we got this presentation now than a year later or 2 years later. We're pretty far along in the conference realignment process. There is more to come. And if Virginia Tech can find some better on-field results, and if they can get some more financial buy-in from the university, there is time for them to be able to market themselves in a better fashion when the next round of realignment begins, which is not all that far off. We know that the ACC is in a perilous situation starting in just a few seasons. There are many media rights deals that are going to have to get renewed around that same time frame. So this is a really pivotal 3 to 4 year stretch for Virginia Tech as not just a football team, not just as an athletic department, but as a university in general. If Virginia Tech wants to take advantage of the opportunities that exist when it comes to athletics, they're going to have to be really aggressive over these next 3 to 4 years. And that's going to require commitment and investment from the university that just hasn't been there in the university's history. So I wouldn't say that I'm confident that that's going to happen, but I think it's a possibility. And at this point, we just have to hope that the Board of Visitors and Tim Sands are going to take this as seriously as possible and begin drawing up tangible ways to kind of meet this ask from Whit.
Ricky Allen with this. The cardinal sin truly would have been if this presentation could have been made 12 months ago, 18 months ago, but it was pushed off to the edge because there was national media hype around the football team going into the preseason.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, don't miss the forest because of the trees. You have to be able to keep a big picture view of this, and we've talked about it before. We all know what's looming here in a few years. So, that's 53 minutes that we'll never get back. As far as the defense goes, we don't have to get super in depth, but there are a few things that I want to talk about as far as this unit goes. Virginia Tech brought in a boatload of transfers, many of whom were on the defensive side of the ball. They brought in like 7 defensive backs just this offseason. They brought in several defensive linemen. And that's because they've got some big shoes to fill. I mean, Antoine Powell-Ryland is one of the best pass rushers in school history as far as the last 25, 30 years go. And maybe even further back, I'd have to go back and look at the numbers, but it's been a while since Tech had such an impactful guy off the edge. He's gone. Dorian Strong, one of the better corners that we've seen in the program over the last couple decades, he's gone. Mansour Delane, for all of his kind of inconsistencies, was still a talented player. He's gone. Aeneas Peebles also gone. There's a ton of guys that Virginia Tech has to replace on this side of the ball. And to me, I think the biggest worry, but also potentially the biggest opportunity given what they brought in, is how they're going to be able to rush the passer without Antoine Powell-Ryland. They bring in a guy like Ben Bell. They bring in James Joncom. They bring in a few other guys as well. What's your confidence that Tech can replicate and kind of reproduce the level of pass rush that we saw last year?
It really, I mean, this is going to be the same conversation with the secondary, but it's really going to depend on how impactful some of the transfers are. I don't anticipate being able to easily fill the shoes of what APR was able to do. I think that would be unreasonable. But I'm hopeful that Virginia Tech at least has more depth outside of their front line defensive linemen, right? That is one thing I will mention about last year's team, is that we were really confident in the pass rushers that Virginia Tech had and the guys that they were running out there. We were less confident in the depth of the defensive line. Virginia Tech brought in a lot of transfers in the secondary and on the defensive line, and there's also just a lot of young guys who are eager to get going. I will say that I think the defensive line will be okay. My concern is actually with another position group, and it's not the secondary. So we just narrowed it down that we can get into linebackers in a second. I'm pretty concerned about that, right? I'm less concerned about defensive line. I don't know if we'll be able to get the APR type production again, right, from pass rush. Just he alone was just so good that it's going to be really hard to fill those shoes. But it's really going to be reliant on how many of these portal guys pan out, how many of these young guys step up.
I think we lost Michael again. Andrew, go ahead.
Well, that's fine. We'll miss Mike dearly. But
for the third time tonight, RIP.
Yeah, at the end of the day, for me, right, what I've seen from
He's so disappointed.
I'm ready to nuke this computer again. I don't get it. I don't understand. Sorry,
Mike. The talking stick has been given to Andrew.
It's fair. That's fair.
No. Mike, continue your point.
I had nothing else to add. Just hope the young guys and the portal guys pan out. I was being long-winded anyway. So,
all right, Ricky, go to my request.
I'm already ready. Whenever you're. All right. Andrew was asked for this comment to go back up.
All right. Thomas Anderson says, this isn't a baseball podcast. Get to current events. Well, we'll make it more like a baseball podcast because it's clear that we are trying to replace Aeneas Peebles and Antoine Powell-Ryland in the aggregate.
Yeah.
This is Moneyball.
Well done.
And if the state of affairs remains the same, folks, get ready for Moneyball at every position because that's the direction we're going. So I hope that Joncom, who was a great player in the MAC,
playing middle linebacker, by the way.
Yeah, playing middle linebacker, can get down on that front line and make an impact. You know, we have guys from all over the place. Can they be as impactful as that group was last year? If they are, I mean, I'll be jarred. I hate to beat down on the drum that's in the dumpster by now, but we had a really good team last year and we only won 6 games. That was really a good year to win. But unfortunately, we couldn't capitalize. So I hope these guys can make an impact. I think that they are not devoid of talent. I look for the guy that's going to be that big plus in the backfield in the pass rush. And from what I see right now, I don't necessarily know who that guy is. So I'm waiting to be surprised. But right now, today, I'll take a B and be hyper satisfied.
Well, if there's any consolation prize from the defensive line group this year compared to last year, defensive tackle was a big concern last year, especially as far as depth goes. 4 seniors in the rotation, likely at defensive tackle, and the next guy is going to be a redshirt junior in his 4th year, Kamari Copeland. So, and there's been some talk about him potentially being a breakout player this year after dealing with some injuries. So, Virginia Tech has, like Andrew said, tried to replace that experience and that production with a bunch of different guys, and in the process, hopefully has added some options to that group, and you'd be able to rotate those guys in and out a little bit and keep them fresh for the length of the season. Mike, your concerns at linebacker are definitely valid. However, I'm wondering, how much of a step Caleb Williams has taken, Caleb Woodson has taken this season. And I'm also wondering what the impact of having Xavier DB coaching that group will be, and if they're able to get out of some of that funk that they were in while Marv was coaching this unit.
Yeah, like even just like a moderate step forward just in the way they're being coached, I think will go a long way. We've seen the impact of Caleb Woodson when he's at his best. Like, what kind of step forward is that going to be? It also seems like this is going to be a lot of Sam Steve gets been talking. Oh, it's going to be a multiple defense. It seems like it's going to be a lot of 4-2-5, which would make sense given the amount of transfers they brought in the secondary.
Yeah.
Then if it's going to be Woodson and Keller again, what is the impact of a DB's coaching on Jaden Keller in particular?
Well, what about Caleb Spencer as well? Because to me,
he's very good last year.
As far as I'm concerned, he's the closest thing I've seen, and he's still not there, but he was the closest thing I'd seen to kind of an alley defender playing the run as well as he did that what we saw with Mook Reynolds several years ago. That was Mook's biggest strength, was even though he was 190 pounds, he was able to knife through blocks and make tackles for loss consistently on the edge all the time.
Yep.
And he played that kind of that linebacker safety hybrid position. And Caleb doesn't have quite the athletic profile that Mook had, but I still think
if anyone under the age of 26 is listening to this podcast, I'm sorry, because we're talking that ancient stuff. But
I have to forget that I'm 31 now, and that Mook Reynolds happened a long time ago.
Yeah, it was long enough. Virginia Tech hasn't had a serious linebacker in a long time. But I do
Mook's
think
coaching high school football now.
Who is?
Mook Reynolds.
Oh, wow.
Caleb Woodson probably has the best chance of any player on this defense to be an all ACC player.
Interesting.
Reddish, maybe?
I was going to go with, honestly, I was kind of floating between Bell and Jonkum. I thought that they might have a chance to be like a second team or an honorable mention type guy, but I don't really know what the ACC's linebackers look like. But I mean, Brent Pry was extremely high on Woodson when he was a recruit. They've talked glowingly about him since he got here. So, I mean, it's certainly a possibility, but like Mike said, any improvement at linebacker at this point will be appreciated given how inconsistent that unit has been for several years.
Worried about depth there too.
Yeah.
Mostly because we don't know what it's going to look like. Like if one of the top 2 or 3 guys gets hurt, it's a little bit of a different conversation than like defensive tackle, which we just talked about, It's just not a lot of proven depth at linebacker. There's more proven depth in the secondary in terms of the transfers that are, I know we'll move to secondary now, I guess, but like in terms of everybody they brought in, at least they were a lot of them were productive elsewhere. So there's a lot of at least FBS players in the secondary that you could choose from a depth standpoint. You can shuffle, just find the lineup that works. I don't feel that way with linebacker. So that's that's the concern if it doesn't work out, I guess.
I think I counted 6 transfers in the secondary, Mike. Let's count them off.
It's a lot.
Caleb Brown from Hawaii. Tyson Flowers from Rice. Christian Ellis from New Mexico.
Brown Murray.
That's the guy right there.
Rod Koval from Clemson. Isaiah Cash from Sam Houston State. And who did I miss? I think I missed one. Oh, Isaiah Brown Murray. Yeah. So tons of guys coming into this unit. This was a unit that was decimated at safety with transfers between Mose Phillips and Jalen Stroman both leaving. Virginia Tech adds what could potentially be like 3 starting quality safeties, honestly, which they may need all of them.
Or 0 starting quality safeties, depending on how you look at it.
Yeah, that's certainly true. And I think we've lost Michael once again. But all of these guys had pretty good PFF grades when it poor Mike is struggling to get through the end of this show.
I'm now using a different browser. I cannot wait to get to the end of this podcast. I enjoy talking to you guys, but I need to throw my computer into bathtub or something.
You can throw it. You can take a drive to the Potomac and throw it there. Lots of options in this secondary, and I think it goes to what Mike was saying, that I think we are going to see probably 5 defensive backs on the field more often than not, and I think we're going to see a mix of 3 high safety, 2 high safety looks, where Virginia Tech is going to try and take advantage of the different weapons that they've added at the secondary, whether it be at corner or safety. I think there's going to be a plethora of options, and I guess my biggest worry with having versatility and kind of variability on defense is how long will it take for them to get comfortable in that scheme, especially with a brand new defensive coordinator, tons of brand new assistants and new players. How long is it going to take for these guys to gel?
It's my question too. I guess I feel more comfortable with the secondary, even though it's a lot of new guys. There are at least players there, right? Like, I think that if you're going to have an overhaul on the defensive side of the ball from coordinator on down, I think this is the year to, this is the unit where it's like, all right, like, let's just bring in as many transfers as we can. We're turning over everything anyway. And there are some guys that Tech will miss, right? Like, Delane was very up and down last year. Tech will miss him. Tech will miss Dorian Strong and his consistency from year 1 to year 4. Like, they will miss those guys, but I think there's enough there in the secondary, from Dante Lovett to the guys they're bringing in as transfers, that I think Tech will be okay.
Who's number 2, Mike? Who's number 2?
At corner?
Yeah, corner. I'm serious. It's a big question.
Thomas Williams.
We all watched what was it,
2008,
2018, where
probably
a young Caleb Farley was getting burned all the time, and that will ruin your season. So who's number 2?
It's gonna probably start with Thomas Williams, but like, to your point, Andrew, it better work. I guess that would be my biggest concern is corner. I'm less concerned with safety.
Yeah, I mean, well, also quick petition.
Safety should be fine.
Can we just start calling Isaiah Brown Murray IBM?
Yeah.
I'm down with that. I think that's a good nickname.
Yeah, it's good.
But I don't know how he fits in. I don't know if they're going to be playing him kind of in between or if he's going to stick solely at corner. I don't know if they're going to try and slide any of these safeties over. Quentin Reddish's brother is here. Don't know where he's going to slot in this rotation. So we're going to learn a lot about this team and this defense on week 1 against South Carolina. And I guess maybe the silver lining in that is that so will South Carolina. They may be learning a lot about this defense in week 1. And hopefully Virginia Tech can use some of that to their advantage. Really quick, we got to wrap this show up. The most important player on the defensive side of the ball for you this year, Mike, we'll start with you.
Keller. It's Keller.
Okay.
It's Keller. It's time, man. It's time. Like, Pry's been talking about him since he got here. It's been very up and down. The highs have been really good. The lows have been excruciatingly low. It's Keller. He has to be good because I don't know what's behind him.
Andrew?
I would disagree with Mike heavily. I think Keller is almost in the same way that we've looked at a lot of players in the past. He is what he is. I mean, I would take the arbitrary. It's the next man up. Who's going to be your next APR? Who's going to be the next guy that surprises you? Maybe Flowers on the back end.
Yeah.
Maybe Jonkum on the edge. But if Virginia Tech is going to be any good, when I say any good, I mean good enough to save Brett Pry's job, one of these transfers is going to have to be a plus guy.
Yeah.
And we've taken transfers from everywhere, and I'm not going to judge them from being from these random schools. They had good statistics. They had good seasons.
Yeah.
Khalil Mack went to the University of Buffalo and played there for 4 years. Like, these schools are not devoid of talent, but someone has to step up and be a plus guy. Because when I look at the defensive line, when I look at these corners, and you can even include Dante Levitt in that. Maybe he takes a big step forward. But someone is going to have to go from just above mid, just above that replacement level, to a plus guy. Because last year, Virginia Tech had a number of plus guys. And if you question that because of the record, take a look at the NFL draft when 5 guys were taken.
Yeah.
And they still weren't able to win a bunch of games. I mean, they won 6, but nonetheless.
That's not a bunch.
that is about half of them, including the FCS game. Either way, who is going to step up? Maybe it'll be Flowers. There's a lot of hype around him. Maybe it'll be Lovett at corner. He was an incredibly hyped up recruit, and I'm excited to see how he does. Maybe Quentin Reddish is going to go play for Alabama next year. I don't know. But for this season, someone's got to step up, and I'm looking for that guy.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Woodson. Mike, I like the idea of looking at the linebackers, but I'm going to pick Woodson because I think he has the ceiling. He has the area to which he can grow. I kind of agree with Andrew that I don't think Jaden Keller's got much left that he can get out of his career. I certainly hope I'm wrong. I'm hoping that maybe Xavier coaching him and him being under Cephas' tutelage will be able to maybe mask some of his deficiencies. But as far as the athlete, the skill, the talent, the mind, Caleb Woodson, I think, needs to take a big step forward this year, and I think he's got the room to do it. And if he does, it'll really solidify a linebacker core that's been either average or just flat out bad for several years at this point. So those are the 3 that we've got: Jaden Keller, Caleb Woodson, and was it Tyson Flower? Or
we'll do a tie between Flowers and Reddish.
Okay, we'll go ahead and put up both. Mike's dipping out early. He's had enough. Andrew, any last words before we get out of here?
Shout out to my boy Nathan Brennan. Got married last weekend. Gave me the honor of being best man. For those of you who weren't in the New River Valley at the time, me and him did a radio show, and he left me for Nebraska so that he'd be right back. Met a girl, and it looks like he's never leaving. So I couldn't be more proud of my buddy. So that's all I have to say about that.
Glad you were able to go. Really quick, Counts Family Pharmacy in Blacksburg. That's the place to be. Also, Home Field Apparel's got all the stuff you need for the upcoming season. Beamer Ball gets you 15% off your first order. Use the promo code. We're going to be back with a season preview, the big episode coming up here soon.
Full season preview. I think Ricky's going to have to put out a poll on the on our X account, the Everything app.
Yes.
How many games are Virginia Tech going to win? Is it going to be 2? Is it going to be 10?
Yeah. And And in concert with this the season preview, we have a big project to unveil when that happens. So be on the lookout for that. We've got some big stuff coming. That'll be out here in the next several days, because we also have to give ourselves time for a South Carolina specific preview, because Andrew, we are playing sooner than we think.
Wait, Ricky, are you going?
I am not going. I will be at Vanderbilt in a couple
I'll see
weeks.
you.
But I
I'll
will
see you
not
there.
be-
I'll see
yes,
you
sir.
there.
I
All
will
right.
not be in Atlanta. However, Izzy Post Ruland will be in Atlanta shooting the game for us. So shout out Izzy. She'll be getting some good photos, and we'll be making sure that we share plenty of those. For Mike McDaniel and for Andrew, rip Mike, number one, hopefully gets his computer fixed, but also good night and go Hokies.